I told my husband I would never accept polyamory. But after he asked me 2 more times to rethink it, I can't shake the ick, and now I'm deciding whether to end the marriage before my trust in him is completely gone. Can you imagine your entire world shattering because your husband asks one question? I thought I knew the man I married just a year ago, the man I loved with all my heart. But then, one night, he uttered words that shattered our future and left me with a permanent tick that I just couldn't shake. What do you do when your partner suddenly asks for something that feels like a fundamental betrayal of everything you built? My husband, let's call him Alex, and I had been together for 4 years, married for just over 1. We'd spent so much time talking about what we wanted out of life, out of marriage. I genuinely believed we were on the same page about all the big things. He was sweet, helpful, truly my dream partner, until last week. It was out of the blue. He sat me down and said he needed to talk. My first thought, oh, he's had a rough day at work. Or maybe he was frustrated about some minor thing. I was so wrong. Instead, he told me he discovered his best friend and his wife were polyamorous. And get this, he thought he might like to try it. He just casually wondered what I thought. Honestly, I felt instantly sick to my stomach. We'd always had this amazing connection, a great sex life. He'd never given me a single reason to think he was interested in anyone else. So I told him straight up, no. I'm not interested in being in a polyamorous relationship. I want to be monogamous with you for the rest of my life. If it had stopped there, maybe, just maybe, things wouldn't have gotten so bad. But it didn't. He then asked if I would read about it and then decide. I said, no, I already know how I feel. He pushed again. Would you at least think about it? That was it. For some reason, that second and third ask, it just did something to me. It was an instant revulsion, a profound upset that hit me deep. I stood up. I told him I was too upset to keep talking, that I needed space, and I'd be sleeping in the guest room. We could talk later. Ever since that night, I've had the biggest ick whenever I see him. He keeps trying to backtrack, trying to say it was just a question, just an idea. But I know he meant what he said. It wasn't just that he brought it up. It was those 2 extra asks after I made my boundaries crystal clear. It was like my feelings didn't matter, like he thought he could convince me, and it made me feel awful. What else would he pressure me into if I said no? And if he already wanted to sleep with someone else, how could I ever trust him not to do it behind my back? I was still sleeping in the guest room, and honestly I started thinking about divorce. Now, while it was still simple to divide things up and go our separate ways, instead of waiting years down the line for my heart to be truly shattered, he could go do whatever he wanted, and I could find someone who just wanted a good, solid, monogamous relationship with me. The idea was killing me, absolutely gut-wrenching. But I knew it was going to hurt no matter what. I still loved him, a part of me did, but I couldn't unhear, couldn't unsee my husband asking for an open relationship. The idea of him even touching me, it made me feel ill. He was upset, frustrated, saying I was punishing him for just asking a question. But what did he expect? There's this little voice in my head telling me maybe I'm being overdramatic, maybe I should just try counseling. But that ick, it's so strong, so visceral, that I don't have much hope of ever getting back to where we were. Some people said I was the jerk. They said he brought something up in a safe space, and I shut him down, that I didn't even try to understand, that I didn't give him grace. But here's the thing. I know what polyamory is. I don't need to consider it to know there are absolutely no conditions under which I would ever be comfortable with anything but a mutually monogamous relationship. I know my boundaries. He knew them too. We talked about these things before we got married. And his backtracking, it made me respect him less, not more. It showed me he was wishy-washy, that he wouldn't stand by what he said if there were consequences. It wasn't just that he pitched something that went against my core values, but that he persisted when I said no, and then couldn't even stand by his own words. I'm the more sexually adventurous one in our relationship. My best friend is a dominatrix, for crying out loud. I've seen some stuff. I don't judge people for their fantasies, but I also know not every fantasy is appropriate to bring up. He knew how I felt about fidelity. Bringing this up was like asking an arachnophobe if they want a pet spider. It's disrespectful. This wasn't just a "wouldn't that be neat" fantasy. This was an ask. After all this, I went and got an STI test just to be safe. I didn't think he'd physically cheat, but better safe than sorry, right? And I started to suspect he already had someone in mind, maybe his friend's wife, or even his friend. He'd never said he was bisexual, but you just never know. Every time he brought it up, he just dug himself deeper. Not taking my first no for an answer became a bigger issue than the poly question itself. So, I decided to meet with a lawyer. At this point, I just didn't have faith that counseling would change how I felt. Though, I told him I'd be willing to try a few sessions just to say we gave it a shot. He didn't think counseling was necessary. He just wanted to go back to the way things were. That's not an option, I told him. You can't unbreak a bone. It has to heal. I asked him again if he had someone in mind, and he denied it, but he's not a good liar. He also refused to show me messages between him and his friend. That sealed it for me. There was something he was hiding. Then came the call that changed everything. The wife of his poly friends contacted me. She wanted to come clean. They'd both been unaware I didn't know. He'd lied to them too. He told them we had a don't ask, don't tell situation. Turns out, he'd been having an affair with both of them for a few months. My world felt like it was crumbling. Suddenly, all my suspicions were confirmed. The shoddiness, the refusal to show me texts, the persistence. It wasn't just a theoretical ask. He was already doing it. I found a fellow resident who needed a roommate. I started making plans. My dad and uncle were going to come down and be my safety exit when I finally told him. The saddest part? He'd been a closeted bisexual all this time. He could have told me at any point, and I would have supported him. I'd have helped him get whatever support he needed. I wasn't repulsed by him being bi, not at all. My best friend is bi. What I couldn't tolerate was the lack of integrity, the lies, and the fundamental disrespect of our monogamous agreement. I moved fast. His behavior was getting concerning. The final straw came when he tried to get into bed with me against my wishes. That was it. I got emergency leave from work, my parents drove down, and we mostly moved my things out while he was at work. My lawyer filed the papers that very Friday. He didn't take it well. I told him I knew about the cheating. I told him I wanted a divorce, quietly, to protect him from his conservative family, given his bisexuality. He yelled, broke down crying, refused to accept it, but my dad was there, standing firm. We left. On the way, I called his parents, thanked them for welcoming me, and told them I was divorcing him for cheating. It was devastating, but I had to cut ties. I blocked him on everything but email. I crashed at an Airbnb with my parents and just fell apart. That part of my life was over. I heard through a mutual friend that he was suicidal. I truly hope he gets help, because his behavior had been so strange. But even with that, I knew I was done. I wasn't okay, but I knew I would be. Then, a month later, the call came. My ex, he overdosed. I was still his emergency contact. I didn't know he'd started using cocaine. It was all so surreal. I handed everything over to his parents. I'm not sorry I left, and everything I've learned since reinforces that I made the right decision. But I did still love him, and this felt like a kick in the gut. I don't think I ever truly knew him. Or maybe he just never let me know the real him. It still hurts. I wished he'd just been honest at some point, that we could have figured things out, instead of him hiding things until he was in too deep. I don't think he was an innately bad person. He was kind, generous, empathetic so many times. I think his fear of being out, the pressure from his family to conform, it just damaged him in ways that the drugs clearly didn't help. Waking up in my new place, though, was profoundly relieving. I knew I made the right choice. My roommate and I get along great. I'm focusing on work, on my residency. My family and friends have been incredibly supportive. With his passing, the divorce proceedings are over. His parents just want some of his things. I'm taking what's left in his personal savings and putting it into a college account for his niece and nephew. He may have ended up a bad husband, but I know he loved those kids. I won't be going to the funeral. It just doesn't feel appropriate. Funerals are for the living, and his family deserves to mourn without the awkwardness of my presence. I deserve to mourn without being around them. I was settling into the idea of being an ex-wife but being a widow instead? I don't even know. I'm going to counseling soon to untangle all of this. For now, I'm just going to stay busy. What would you have done if your whole world got turned upside down like mine did? Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved because of a fundamental difference, even when it broke your heart? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to know.